Well, this is very peculiar. I don't know if you caught my intro for tonight, but the handheld camera has been kicking out on me a little bit. What you're seeing here is one of my favorite galaxies of the early spring, late winter, NGC 2683. It's a galaxy in Lynx, magnitude 9.8, 8.8 by 2.5. You can see it's a near edge-on spiral. It does not have a bar. It's a chord galaxy. We're not seeing a dark lane either, but this is a fairly spectacular view. Oh, that was interesting. My lamp collapsed down below me. Probably a cable hit it. Anyway, the galaxy is not too distant, fairly large. It's probably a sub-average sized galaxy, which means probably about 75,000 light years across. And the reason I can say that is because I've been investigating the actual size of galaxies based on their distances, apparent size, and magnitudes. And I discovered in doing so that the great Andromeda Galaxy is average sized for a spiral, 150,000 light years across, while the Milky Way is estimated to be only about 90 to 100,000 light years across in its diameter. So this one's probably somewhere in the realm of 75. I'll have to check the numbers later, but it's not easy to find information about the actual size of galaxies, so what I've had to do is come up with a plot myself. Eventually, maybe I'll write a little script so I don't have to look it up on a table, but I've created the table. And like I said, this is a sub-average size spiral galaxy. It has a central core without a bar. That's what the SB means. It does not have a central bar. If it had a capital B, if it was a capital B galaxy, it would be a barred spiral. Now I'm going to run through the rest of them this evening, and as I may have mentioned before the camera cut out on me, and I may already have it recorded, I'm now running at about 15-inch aperture settings on the 6-inch scope using 128 flood and using 42 decibels of auto gain control. And I'm thinking I'm going to stay with this because it gives the best compromise of depth plus image quality in terms of stars and a lack of disturbance because it only has about a 9 seconds total exposure time using 6 frames each of about 1.5 seconds. And not quite maximum sensitivity because I don't want to experiment with 44.2 and it doesn't make that much difference anyway. So here's our view of a beautiful edge-on NGC 2683 galaxy in Lynx that we've seen before at the 12-inch settings in the previous night out. All right, we're on to another beautiful galaxy, NGC 2903. It's a galaxy in Leo. I think it's pretty much west of Regulus, magnitude 912 by 5.6 arc minutes, so a little more oblique presentation, but about the same size as the previous galaxy. It is a spiral, but it's got a bar, plus some spiral arms, a B, so a chord barred spiral of class subset C, and if you look at the screen, what are you seeing? We're seeing the beautiful spiral arms of this galaxy presented with H2 regions. This is one beautiful galaxy. Look at those spiral arms and how well delineated. Boy, I don't know if I captured an image of this at the 12-inch settings the previous night, and I may very well have, but it didn't look like this. Otherwise, I would have been really as excited about seeing this one as I was the near edge on previously. So, whoa, what a gorgeous view. NGC 2903 in Leo. NGC 2906 wasn't originally on my observing schedule for this evening. It's a galaxy in Leo. I just progressed off 2903, that gorgeous oblate spiral we were seeing. This one's magnitude 12.7, 1.4 by 0.9 arc minutes, 96 million light years distant. I may have mentioned that I'm making a study. I'm not sure if the camera captured it earlier because it cut off on me, but of the apparent sizes and distances of galaxies and their actual sizes in space. I suspect this oblate spiral we're seeing here is probably a sub-average size galaxy, but I will put captions on referencing the chart I drew up as a result of my investigations on this video, so you'll get an idea of actually how large these galaxies are as we progress. One thing I also want to point out is I've changed the settings on the display, made it flatter to the eye, but we're still seeing the dark bar on the camera, so the settings on the display don't seem to have much effect. So as I've been doing, I put the greatest contrast and brightness of a particular study right above the dark bar. And hopefully most of them will fall into near the middle of the screen as we progress throughout the evening. Here's a second in a row adventitious galaxy just arrived at by progressing through the software database on the Gemini II, NGC 2907, Galaxy in Hydra, magnitude 11.6, fairly bright, 2 by 1.2 arc minutes. It's a spiral of class A and B. Little letter. Oh, I'm going to have to look into more of that, but it's going to take some memorization. But because it's a lowercase ab, it does not have a bar. It's 92 million light years distant. I suspect this is also a sub-average sized galaxy, so it's not quite as large as the average galaxy, which M31, the great galaxy in Andromeda, is a good example of it, 150,000 light years in diameter. This one's probably more like 80 or 90, like our own Milky Way. So don't quote me on it, I'll have to look it up later, but probably this one's a Milky Way sized galaxy located almost 100,000, or I should say 100 million light years distant. Here's a galaxy in Cancer, NGC 2775. It's fairly bright, magnitude 10.1, large, 4.5 by 3.6. It's a spiral without a bar. It's at a distance of 60 million light years. I suspect this one, given its size and its relative distance, is pretty close to being an Andromeda-sized galaxy. You can see it here. At my position, I can almost get a sense of just a brilliant luminosity around the core, which should be visible with a sense of spiralicity. Just a sense. It's not calling it an elliptical. An elliptical would not have spiral arms. It'd be more or less like an extended core galaxy that just goes on and bleeds off into space. But here's our galaxy in Cancer, the Crab. Our next study is a deep south galaxy, minus 24 degrees in Hydra, NGC 2784, magnitude 10.2, large, 5.7 by 2.5 arc minutes, and therefore presenting obliquely. It's a spiral right at the break point of the Hubble diagram, which means once you get through all the ellipticals, 1, 3, 5, and 7, there's a tuning fork point where it can go either way, either into barred spirals or chord spirals. This is right on that. This particular galaxy is 29 million light years distant. Fairly large, but I still think it's probably sub-average galaxy like our own. Let's have a look. You can see the core. So it's almost like it's an elliptical galaxy with a flat disk around it. So most elliptical galaxies basically are like eggs, well-shaped symmetrical eggs, whereas a class S capital O spiral is going to be much more flattened. So it's more like a spiral galaxy in terms of its aspect ratio if turned on its side. And you get a sense of that in this image of NGC 2784. Our next galaxy is an adventitious one just by progressing through the database. NGC 2785, a galaxy in Lynx. Magnitude 14.2, 1.5 by 0.5 arc minutes. It's 122 million light years distant. Now, had this galaxy been closer to, let's say, 300 million light years distant, it would have been as large as the Andromeda Galaxy. So it's also a sub-average size galaxy. But you can make out a core. You can see the spiral extensions. It's too bad the screen is being a little disturbed by my weight shift. You can see that in the stars. By punching up the display, I might be getting too much pixelation on the screen now. I might drop it down for the remnant of the evening. But what I like about this particular galaxy is how faint it is. This is a 14.2 magnitude galaxy showing structure. That is very impressive. So it looks like the choice of 128 flood and 42 decibels of auto gain control is pretty much a very excellent setting for viewing and imaging galaxies, since I'm sure we could probably get down to 15.5 given how much presence NGC 2785 has on the screen. NGC 2819 is another adventitious galaxy. I went after 2818, but it turned out to be in Pyxis, and it was way too far south. This is a galaxy in Cancer, magnitude 12.8, 1.4 by 1.3 arc minutes in size, 401 million light years distant. This is a supersized galaxy, probably some 300,000 light years across. And we're seeing it. So this is a galaxy that's probably twice the size of M31. And it's only tiny, of course, because we're seeing it from such a long distance. So it's this is an elliptical galaxy. So no wonder it is very bright. Elliptical galaxies have converted most of its cold dark matter into stars. There's very little intervening matter in the elliptical galaxy to block the light, and so it's almost like it's a humongous globular cluster. So that is why this baby's so bright. Its size is what makes it interesting, not its brightness. 1.4 by 1.3 arc minutes is larger than the M31 galaxy would appear at this distance. NGC 3134, a galaxy in Leo, is a sub-average size galaxy of magnitude 14.6, 0.8 by 0.2 arc minutes, so obviously more or less edge on. It's another one of those tuning fork branch point spiral galaxies. So it doesn't have spiral arms or bars or core. It's just an extended flattened version of an elliptical galaxy, some 240 million light years distant. And there's our view. Clearly the galaxy is visible above the dark bar. 14.6 magnitude galaxy, and it's actually showing a little bit of structure there, so very impressive. I'm really happy with these settings. I'm not happy with the amount of distortion now that's occurring with stars, however. So that's a bit problematic, and I wouldn't use these settings for if I were showing clusters. 6-inch settings are perfectly fine for clusters and stars, and when it comes to globulars, something a little more than 6-inch settings is probably the best idea to get a good view. But this is fine for galaxies if all you do is look at the galaxy. Well, this one's just for my notes. You can't see it because we're too low to the horizon and there's a street light over there, but it's a huge 20 arc minute size galaxy, 3109. I believe it's in Hydra. I'm going to come back to it later once it culminates. Right now I'm sucking on a lot of light from the street lamp, so it's over-brightening the screen. So, note to self, 3109! Oh, here's another beauty. NGC 3115. It's a galaxy in sextans. Magnitude 8.9. 7.3 by 3.4 arc minutes. It's an elliptical of type 6, which means it's distended. A type EO elliptical is spherical, but E6 is very close to the limit of E7, which means it's kind of a hot dog shaped elliptical galaxy. 32 million light years distant. Not particularly large, probably about the size of our own galaxy. I'll have to check that out later. But here you go. Here is Galaxy NGC 3115, and quite a view it is. Wow, I wonder why he called this an elliptical galaxy. It looks spiral-esque to me. It probably should have been more of an S capital O. Pretty uniform distribution of light and its extensions, but it looks very flat as opposed to being roundish, distended like an egg. I guess it's Hubble's system. He came up with a system, so I suppose he can decide what he wants. But that's more of a class 0, class capital O spiral by my way of thinking. But what a nice view. Whew. Lovely. Adventitious galaxy, NGC 3117 in sextans. Magnitude 13.3, almost an arc minute, face-on elliptical, 306 million light years distant. That pretty much puts it right up there, probably a little larger than our own galaxy, but a little smaller than Messier 31. And here's the view. Now remember, we're seeing something over 300 million light years distant right now on this. That is a considerable distance. I believe the most distant one I've seen, it hasn't been a quasar, was about 620 million light years. But there's our view. Now I did drop down the contrast and the brightness a little bit. So it's not quite looking as pixelated. Does seem to be an awful lot of other galaxies in the region. The scope's been tracking pretty good tonight, though. I started off with stars, but on the first galaxy I went to, I resynchronized, and ever since then it's been looking pretty good. I'm thinking I might like this galaxy. It's going to be a little subtle. NGC 3118, it's also adventitious, a galaxy in Leo Minor. Its magnitude is 13.5, but it's fairly edge-on. Aspect ratio of 2.5 to 0.4 means it's pretty much facing, it's a frisbee flying right at us. It's a spiral of class BC, which means it has a core, but it's not a capital, which means it doesn't have a large bar. 60 million light years distant, not particularly large, probably a supra-dwarf-sized galaxy. But here it is in the screen, and you can see the alignments have been really good tonight, because that's clearly a spiral with that kind of aspect ratio we're talking about. So we're not misidentifying anything. So after that initial synchronization, it looks like we're doing a pretty good job of centering up. I did spend a little time making a few mechanical adjustments, as I always do, before it got dark. But there you go. NGC 3118, Galaxy of Leo Minor. NGC 3166 is a galaxy in sextans. Magnitude 10.4, large, 4.8 by 1.9, 60 million light years distant. Probably largish, but not as large as, probably about the same size, maybe a little smaller than our own galaxy if our galaxy were at that distant. Giving a kind of an oblate presentation, and you can see it right there on the screen. It's a spiral with a bar. So it's got an extended bar on it in photographs that you might find. You're seeing the bar, you're seeing some haze. I'm seeing what might be an H2 region at the 12 o'clock position. Fairly intense, brightish, galaxy that should look pretty good through a 12-inch scope, maybe even a 10. There's our look at a virtual 15-inch aperture scope. Ooh, there's another galaxy up above it too. Look at that, more edge on. NGC 3177 is a galaxy in Leo, magnitude 12.4, 1.5 by 1.2 arc minutes, some 61 million light years distance. It's a spiral of lowercase bc, which indicates it doesn't have an extended bar. Anyway, so I have to look more into that, but let's have a look at the galaxy itself. And you can see its presentation right there. Not seeing much in extended detail on it, but perhaps the handheld camera is picking up more. Kind of globular-esque with a little bit of an oblate presentation to the 11 and 5 o'clock positions in the middle of the screen where I like to see it. Once again, I might run down the brightness of the screen a little bit since it doesn't seem to have eliminated the bar by brightening it up. But it's looking pretty good on the handheld because the handheld is compensating for the brightness. Wow, another potentially favorite galaxy, NGC 3184, galaxy in Ursa Majoris, magnitude 9.8, 7.6 by 7.4. It's a spiral with a bar in it and a core, only 28 million light years distant, probably not that large. Supradwarf galaxy, and you can see the spiralicity right there extending out. Wow, look at that bright core. The spiral arms are winding. Actually, when you see a spiral galaxy, this galaxy is, from our viewing position, is revolving or rotating in the counterclockwise direction, which is causing the spiral arm to trail behind it. Now, the fact that we have spiral galaxy at all is a mystery, but what it does is it demonstrates two things. One, that the gravitational point is it's treated mathematically like a central point, but it's distributed throughout the entire body. And two, dark matter may be holding the structure together in these galaxies. But this baby, wow, what a beautiful face-on spiral. NGC 3184. Folks, get your scopes out and have a look at this one. It's a beautiful time of year for it. It's approaching culmination. And summer is approaching fast, nights are getting long, and these things are going to be spinning out of control. But this is a wonder to behold. Okay, I'm getting a flashing battery light, which means we're going to carpe noctem out in this beautiful galaxy, NGC 3184. And I certainly have appreciated the galaxies of early spring.